They said I was a burden, not in whispers, but right at the dinner table with staff, neighbors, and even my own mother watching. And then they erased me. But I wasn't just their dishwasher. I was leading a team that saved 80,000 lives. They didn't just hurt me behind closed doors. They broke me under the glow of chandelier light while the neighbors clinked wine glasses and staff cleared plates like it was any other Sunday dinner. "You're just playing soldier," Rebecca said, smirking as she tossed me a mop. "You couldn't even run a register, let alone a mission." That was the moment I knew my service meant nothing to them. My rank was invisible. My sacrifice, convenient when they needed something otherwise discarded. I had returned to Portland months earlier after my mother suffered a stroke. I filed for emergency military leave without a second thought, packed my duffel bag, kissed my team goodbye, and took the first flight home. I told myself it was the right thing, the dutiful daughter, the responsible one. What I didn't know was I was stepping back into a house that no longer recognized me. At first, it was little things. No one picked me up at the airport. Rebecca left a spare key under the mat, but the door was jammed like the house itself was reluctant to let me back in. I stayed in my childhood room, if you could still call it that. The posters were gone. The twin bed was stripped bare. It felt less like a homecoming and more like being assigned to quarters I hadn't earned. Still, I helped. I cooked, I cleaned, I folded towels. I took the 12-hour shifts at Ellis Bistro, our family's precious restaurant empire. Rebecca, now self-anointed queen of the kitchen, barked orders, while Mom sat near the bar sipping wine and watching guests more than she ever watched me. I paid rent $700 a month to live in the room I once built pillow forts in. No thank you, no we appreciate you coming back. Just rules bills and a list of responsibilities like I was some live-in helper. I told myself they were stressed, that they needed time, that one day someone would turn to me and say, "We see what you've given up." But they never did. And then one day, everything I'd been saving money from my off-duty contract work funds I had earmarked for a cybersecurity startup was gone, drained from our shared family account. The number stared back at me like a cruel joke, 0.00. When I asked about it, no one responded. Not Mom, not Rebecca, not even Dad, who had once taught me to balance a checkbook in this very kitchen. I spent the night tossing in bed, hoping there was some explanation, a mistake, a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew better. By morning, I received a single text that carved itself into my memory. "Lydia, you are no longer part of this family. Don't come back. Your things will be sent to storage by Saturday." No call. No conversation, just a flat sentence that shattered every reason I thought I had left for staying. I raced back to the house, my house, the one with the white fence and the blue hydrangeas I planted when I was 12. The curtains were drawn, door locked, porch light off. Even the dog next door barked like I was a stranger. I rang the bell, knocked, shouted. No one answered. I called Mom disconnected, Dad straight to voicemail. Rebecca blocked me. I stood there in the cold for what felt like hours, staring at the second-story window where Mom used to wave at me when I came home from school. The curtain moved, just slightly. Someone was there, watching. But no one opened the door. That was the moment, the precise second when I realized I was no longer their daughter, their sister, their anything. They had erased me. And what made it worse wasn't the betrayal itself, but the way they moved on without hesitation, as if I'd never existed, as if all the years I spent in desert heat in bunkers on classified calls meant nothing. They had the audacity to call me a burden, but I wasn't just scrubbing pans. I was running ops the public would never hear about, intercepting digital threats before they became national headlines, building technology that saved lives while they served lobster bisque, and still, I stood in front of that locked door like a kid begging to be let back in. But the real hurt didn't come from being thrown out. It came from the quiet question echoing in my chest. Did I ever belong there in the first place? It was a cold April morning in Portland, the kind that doesn't just chill your skin but your bones. The sky hung heavy, a dull gray dome above the city, and I had just stepped out of my usual corner cafe clutching a cup of black coffee, pretending to look like any other freelance tech consultant. But I wasn't. Just 5 minutes earlier, I had finished coordinating a silent, high-stakes movement with my special ops team. Through an encrypted interface hidden inside a budgeting spreadsheet, I'd signed off on a strategic interception, quiet, precise, successful. No one in that cafe would ever know what we'd just stopped beneath their feet. And then my phone buzzed. One message, no greeting, just Lydia. You are no longer part of this family. Don't come back. Your things will be sent to storage by Saturday. Rebecca. I froze on the sidewalk. The wind whipped through my coat like it was trying to carry me off. I read it again and again, hoping I'd misread it. But I hadn't. It wasn't the words. It was what they meant. That all of it, everything I had sacrificed, everything I had endured, was worthless to them. That my absence would bring them more peace than my presence ever did. I jumped into my truck and drove straight to the house I grew up in. It looked exactly the same, craftsman-style, pale yellow-white picket fence curling at the corners, but it felt different now, smaller, colder, like a house that had decided I no longer belonged. I knocked until my knuckles bled. No one answered. I could hear dishes clinking inside, Rebecca's voice laughing, music playing, life moving on, without me. Just yesterday, I had stood in Ellis Bistro's back office pitching a fully integrated AI security system to help prevent data breaches and fraud. I'd built it myself, Sigma Recon, not for money, not for credit, but in hopes they might finally see me as more than just a glorified backup dishwasher. Rebecca laughed halfway through the pitch. You think you're some national-level hacker? She snorted. Go back to scrubbing pans, Lydia. Mom hadn't even looked up from her iPad. The restaurant is fine the way it is. We don't need science fiction. I said nothing, just nodded, swallowed it. I went back to my childhood room, back to folding towels and balancing invoices, back to pretending I didn't care. That night, I checked the shared family account. The $4 $200 I'd saved from off-duty contracts money I planned to use to seed a cybersecurity startup was gone, withdrawn in full. The name on the transaction, Harold Ellis, my father, a man who once helped me build model planes in the garage, a man who taught me how to solder wires and decode Morse, a man who didn't even bother to say I'm sorry. No warning, no explanation, just erased like I was never meant to have a stake in anything they built. And then, silence. The next morning, I stood at the foot of the same stairs where we used to line up for Christmas pictures and stared up at Mom's window. I waited. The curtain moved again, but the door never opened. That's when I stopped hoping, not just for answers, but for family. Because the truth was simple, they didn't see me. Not when I served them, not when I tried to lead, not when I gave up my identity just to help them stay afloat. The Ellis family didn't lose me. They threw me away. And they'd do it again if it meant saving face at brunch. But they had no idea what I was still capable of, no idea what I'd already done, and no idea that the very legacy they stole was about to come back with a signature they couldn't erase. Growing up, Rebecca was everything polished. She learned piano, smelled like vanilla and pageant hairspray, sliced salmon like it was art. She and Mom hosted wine-tasting nights, matching aprons and matching opinions. Me, I spent my afternoons in the garage with Grandpa Walter, sleeves rolled up, hands smeared in grease and graphite. We studied war maps, built radios, deciphered codes from books I'm pretty sure were classified. He was a retired Army colonel, quiet, sharp, the kind of man who said little but saw everything. The night I turned 12, he handed me a small USB drive. The casing was black matte smooth with his name engraved in sharp block letters. This is a key, Lydia, he told me. One day it'll save you. I thought he was just being poetic. Mom rolled her eyes. Dad, she's not joining the military. Rebecca laughed. He's going senile again. Dad said nothing, just disappeared behind a spreadsheet, but I never forgot the way Grandpa looked at me, like he saw something in me that no one else even tried to understand. At 15, I won the national JROTC tactical competition. I wore my uniform like armor that day, standing on stage, waiting for my family in the crowd. They never showed up. I waited until the auditorium emptied. When I told Mom about applying to West Point, she didn't blink, just tossed the envelope on the kitchen table. Ellis blood doesn't go to war, she said. We run restaurants. We build something real. So I enrolled at the University of Oregon for business administration. On paper, behind the scenes, I signed up for every online course I could find on cyber warfare, digital forensics, AI-driven surveillance systems. I took a part-time job at a scrappy defense tech startup in Portland. My cover was working late shifts at a food truck. No one asked questions. In the shadows of that tiny lab, I developed the early prototype of Sigma Recon, a system designed to detect signal anomalies in real-time video streams. Originally, it was meant to help with traffic optimization. But then one night, it flagged embedded commands in a live municipal feed. Subtle, patterned, dangerous. Something clicked. I sent the beta version to Mike, an old classmate who had joined Special Operations. I said nothing in the email, just, "Run this on your next simulation." 2 hours later, his reply lit up my screen. "This is gold. Who are you really working for?" I smiled, but I didn't answer. Because even then, I was already preparing to walk away from Ellis Bistro, from family, from the need to be seen. By the time I graduated, I had my acceptance into a Black Ops training initiative under the Army's Special Operations Command. I told the family I got a security consulting job in Seattle. No one cared enough to probe deeper. I enlisted under the radar, completed Hell Week-style boot camp, passed field assessments most men twice my size couldn't survive. I became Captain Lydia Bennett. My missions took me into cities I can't name, through code I can't discuss, chasing threats that would never make headlines. But every time I came home, Rebecca handed me a dish schedule. Mom warned me to stay out of the way. Dad ghosted through like I didn't exist, and I still stayed. When Mom had her stroke, I returned. Gave up everything again. I folded towels, took out trash, balanced the restaurant books. Unpaid, unacknowledged, unwelcome. By night, I reconnected with my team, Sarah, Ethan, Mike, and Tara, through a secure relay. Together, we tracked chatter about a bioterrorist cell targeting Portland's water system. If the chatter was real, the city had days, maybe hours. Sigma Recon was the spine of the mission, real-time flagging, pattern recognition. My team trusted me with it. And back home, I was just the girl scrubbing marinara off plates, until the night everything snapped. I came home late from a secure cafe meeting. As I hung my jacket, I heard keys in the kitchen. Rebecca stood there leaning on the fridge, twirling something between her fingers. My USB, Grandpa's USB. "What is this?" she said. "Nuclear codes? Or just the black box for your imaginary victories?" I lunged for it, grabbed it from her hand. Our fingers brushed. My skin burned. "You have no idea what this is," I hissed. "I know it's not taxes," she spat. "And I know you're hiding something." I stormed upstairs. My hands shook as I slid the USB into my encrypted drive, typed in the fail-safe key. What I found changed everything. Tucked in Ellis Bistro's accounting folders beneath receipts and payroll logs was a line item I hadn't seen before: Bennett Legacy Trust. A name Grandpa whispered once, a fund, a safety net, a secret gift. And I was the original beneficiary. Except over the last 12 months, $180,000 had been withdrawn. I traced the IPs. Ellis Bistro accounting terminal. Signed authorization, Harold Ellis, my father. And they'd never said a word. Not a thank you. Not even a warning. This wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. But I didn't cry. Not this time. Because now I had something they couldn't hide. Proof. And soon, they would have to face it. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the USB in my palm like it was pulsing with everything I had ever been denied: validation, truth, legacy. Grandpa wasn't crazy. He wasn't senile. He saw what I couldn't yet name. And now I had to decide, confront them, or disappear forever. I chose confrontation. I spent the next week buried in files. Late at night, while my so-called family slept, I mapped every transaction, traced each transfer. The flow chart I built on my wall looked like a crime scene. because that's what it was. At the center, me. And the truth, they tried to erase. The morning of the staff meeting, I ironed the only blazer I owned, navy blue stiff from years untouched. The last time I wore it, I was debriefing a mission in a tent near Kabul. Today I would wear it into Ellis Bistro's boardroom, not as a daughter, not as a dishwasher, but as the person they underestimated for too long. Rebecca was already at the head of the long walnut table, legs crossed and sharp heels, sipping espresso like it was a weapon. Mom sat beside her in pearls. Dad hovered near the window, fidgeting with his phone. I opened my laptop. This isn't just a proposal, I began. It's protection. I introduced Sigma Recon again, but this time with cold precision. Data encryption, internal fraud detection, real-time AI analysis for every transaction from register to kitchen inventory. I showed live examples, metrics, projections. It could save us over $40,000 in losses annually, I added. Rebecca laughed loud, sharp, like a glass cracking in silence. This isn't the CIA, Lydia. We serve salmon, not state secrets. I held my ground. It's not about the food, it's about what you're blind to. Then she leaned forward, smug. Funny, you didn't care much about protection when you were sneaking around with strangers. She dropped a folder on the table. Inside, surveillance photos. Me. At the cafe. Exiting alley doors. Hugging Sarah, still in uniform. What is this? I snapped. Proof you're lying, Rebecca hissed. You're not consulting, you're plotting. Is this your little militia? Mom chimed in, voice soft but slicing. We had to check Lydia. You're not exactly trustworthy lately. Dad finally spoke. If you want to live outside the law, fine. Just don't drag this house down with you. My jaw clenched. I stared at all of them. I'd been scrubbing their floors while tracking terrorists, folding towels while commanding ops, paying rent to a family who stole my inheritance and called me a traitor, and they had the nerve to call me a burden. I stood tall. You're scared of me, I said. Rebecca's smirk faded. You resent that I built something you can't understand, that I didn't beg to be part of your little empire. Silence. You're ashamed, not because I failed, but because I didn't fail the way you expected. And with that, I walked out. Upstairs, I stared at the mirror in my childhood room, the same one that had reflected years of trying to belong. Then I punched it. Glass shattered, slicing through the silence like my final break from everything I'd once clung to. None of those pieces looked like a failure, not anymore. The next morning, I didn't wait for anyone to tell me what to do. I woke up before the sun muscles tight, but mind clear. I packed only what mattered: my uniforms, encrypted laptop, Grandpa's USB, a few files I couldn't risk losing. Everything else left behind like dead weight. I sat at the same dining room table where birthday candles once flickered and Thanksgiving leftovers always lingered too long. This time it was empty, except for me and my resignation email. Subject: Ellis Bistro. Departure due to irreconcilable differences. No emotion, no rage, just finality. I didn't owe them closure. When I opened the front door to leave, Rebecca was already standing on the porch, a cream envelope in her hand. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. You forgot this, she said, holding it out like a dare. Inside, a printed bank statement. The Bennett Legacy Trust emptied. Every cent. Tucked inside was a handwritten note. You have nothing that belongs to this family. Take the rest of your life and try to make it mean something. No signature, just silence. I stood still, eyes locked with hers, searching for the girl I used to build pillow forts with. But there was nothing, just ice and entitlement. I didn't say a word. I got in my truck and drove. Hours later, I pulled into a faded motel under the Burnside Bridge. We'd used it before, back when we ran dry ops in civilian zones. The room hadn't changed: mustard sheets, cracked lamp heater that coughed like it had pneumonia. I opened my laptop, inserted Grandpa's USB, and typed Walter 394, a black screen. Then blinking text, Lydia. If you're reading this, the time has come. I held my breath. A video played. Grandpa, older, gaunt, but sharp, sat at a desk, medals behind him. His voice shook, but his words didn't. This fund was never for a restaurant, never for fame. It's for you, Lydia, because I saw what they refused to see. If they ever take this from you, know that it was always yours. And if they do, make them pay. Tears blurred the screen, not from sadness, but from being seen. Then, my phone buzzed. Blocked number, I answered. This is Captain Bennett, I said automatically. A pause. Then Captain Bennett. This is James Carter, CIA. We've been monitoring your software. Sigma Recon intercepted a command sequence designed to release cyanotoxin into Portland's water grid. Your system prevented a mass casualty event. I didn't move. I couldn't breathe. Your team executed near-flawless containment. Thousands of lives saved. Quietly. No press. No applause. But we saw it. He paused. And we saw the rest. Your family. The theft. The erasure. You didn't retaliate. You stayed in the fight. That's what caught our attention. And for the first time in years, I broke. I cried. Not because I was weak, but because finally someone saw the real me. A week later, I stood in front of a gleaming glass tower in downtown Portland, the Parker and Lee law offices. The sky was crisp, the Willamette River sparkling behind me. I wore full dress uniform, navy jacket, polished buttons, silver insignia, Captain U.S. Army. I wasn't there to prove a point. I was there to reclaim what was already mine. Margaret Lee, the estate attorney, met me in the lobby. They're inside, she said quietly, motioning to the large conference room at the end of the hall. I stepped through the door. Rebecca sat at the head of the table, stone-gray power suit, arms crossed. Mom wore sunglasses indoors like armor. Dad lingered by the corner as if shrinking into the wallpaper. I sat across from them. I didn't flinch. Margaret inserted the USB into the projector and said calmly, "We'll begin with digital authorship confirmation." Lines of code filled the screen. Then cryptographic signature Lydia Bennett. It matched the Sigma Recon files submitted by the CIA. I wasn't just the creator of the software that saved Portland, I led the operation, Margaret continued. This was verified and submitted to National Intelligence Archives on March 22nd. Then she pressed play on the final video. Grandpa Walter appeared on screen. Older, stern, unshakable. Lydia. If they're watching this, they've forgotten who built the gate to this house. The Bennett Legacy Trust was never for salmon dinners or garden remodels. It was for the one person who understands what it means to lead. That's you. If they tried to steal it, they've already failed. The silence in that room was deafening. Until the door opened again. Nathan Brooks, my cousin, entered with a thick manila file. Independent forensic review, he said, handing it to Margaret. She opened it. The power of attorney used to empty the trust fund was forged. The signature does not match Lydia Bennett's military or financial authorization records. It is invalid. Rebecca's face went white. Mom pulled off her sunglasses. Dad stared at the floor. Margaret looked up. The trust will be frozen immediately pending legal reassignment. Rebecca slammed her hand on the table. You're destroying our family's legacy. I stood slowly. No, I said. I'm reclaiming what was always mine. And it's not about the money, it's about the truth. Then for the final blow, the screen lit up, again this time live. James Carter, from the CIA. Captain Lydia Bennett is under review for the National Defense Medal of Honor. We are appointing her as lead advisor on a classified federal cybersecurity initiative. This will be made public within the month. Rebecca's jaw dropped. Mom gasped. Dad. He finally looked up and saw me. Really saw me. But it was too late. 3 weeks later, City Hall overflowed. Press vans, flags, drone cameras. I stood at the center stage beneath the stone arch flanked by my special ops team, Sarah, Ethan, Mike, and Tara. A CIA official pinned a medallion to my chest. Captain Lydia Bennett prevented a mass casualty attack on Portland's water supply. Quietly, relentlessly, without ever asking for recognition. Applause thundered. Someone in the crowd shouted, "I know her. She used to work at Ellis Bistro." The laughter rippled through the crowd, and I stood tall. From the back of the crowd, I saw them. Mom, Dad, Rebecca, not seated, not clapping, just watching. For once, not the center of the room. Sarah leaned toward me and whispered, "They have no idea what they lost." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That night, I returned to my office, Bennett Security Solutions, my name on the glass, a symbol of the life I built without their permission. Later, I opened Grandpa's old tin box and found a final folded paper. Don't ever ask permission to do what's right. 6 months passed. Autumn kissed Portland in red and gold. My team thrived. Nathan became our financial director. The company grew, quietly, honestly. One day I got a letter in the mail, handwritten. "I feared your strength instead of being proud of it. I'm sorry." Mom, I placed it in a safe not to forgive but to remember where the line was drawn. That night, Tara handed me an old metal box found in storage. Inside a bronze badge with one line, "Led with your heart." I didn't need their acceptance. I didn't need their table, because I had built my own. And finally, I wasn't Lydia the burden. I was Lydia Bennett, commander, survivor, gatekeeper of my own damn story. If this story echoed something deep in you, drop a comment below. Have you ever been erased only to come back stronger? Your voice matters. Subscribe for more stories of quiet power betrayal and the victories no one sees coming until they do.